Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive? Today we're going exploring Windows 11 migrations, but with a twist.
Ooh, a twist. I love twists.
Our source material this time. It's an AI-generated book, Windows 11 Migration Mastery, a strategic guide to enterprise transformation.
AI generated. Interesting. So, like, a robot wrote a book about tech migrations.
Exactly. But, before anyone freaks out about the whole AI thing, we're going to be critically analyzing everything, not just blindly accepting it. Think of it as us filtering the information for you.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So, this book, it's for big companies dealing with those huge migrations to Windows 11.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, just glancing at the table of contents was mind-blowing.
Really? What kind of stuff are we talking about?
Well, for instance, did you know a super thorough organizational readiness assessment could increase the chances of staying on budget by like 23%?
23%. Seriously. That's a huge difference. Budget overruns are a nightmare during any migration.
Tell me about it. And we'll also be digging into how Windows 11 security features can actually make regulatory compliance way easier.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Not just headaches, but solutions too.
Solutions, strategies, the whole shebang.
All right, let's crack this book open. What's the first thing that jumps out at you?
Honestly, the book doesn't just dive straight into the technical stuff. It starts by building a really strong strategic foundation.
I like that approach. You can't just jump into a complex project without a solid plan.
Exactly. So let's talk about that strategic foundation. It introduces this idea of a wordly map.
A Wordly map. What in the world is that?
Imagine a map that visually shows your organization's capabilities, everything from tech to, the actual people. That's a wordly map.
So it's a way to really understand where you're starting from before you jump into a migration.
Exactly. Where are you strong? Where are the gaps? It helps you understand not just the tech, but also the human factors, which are so crucial for any tech rollout.
Okay, I see how that would be useful. A map of your organization. Interesting. But let's talk about the, shall we say, the elephant in the room? Money. Migrations can get expensive fast.
Oh, for sure. And this book doesn't shy away from that.
How does it address the cost aspect?
Well, it introduces this concept of risk mitigation value assessment.
Hold on, break that down for me.
Basically, you're not just trying to avoid risks, you're putting a dollar value on that reduced risk,
Ah,
quantifying how much you save by not having those security breaches.
makes sense. So it becomes a strategic investment rather than just an IT expense.
Exactly. Like peace of mind has a price tag,
Mhm.
and this book helps you calculate it. All right, so we've got our strategic roadmap, a way to understand the costs and justify them. Now what?
Time to get into the technical weeds, right?
You got it. Chapter 2 is all about that. It's called Technical Migration, Architecture, and Security.
Catchy.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that stand out to you?
Well, it talks about those standard deployment scenarios, in-place upgrades, wipe, and loads.
Right, the usual suspects.
But what makes this book interesting is how it highlights the unique security considerations, especially for, government organizations and the like.
Oh yeah, government systems have some serious security requirements.
For sure. And this book provides a framework for navigating all of that. For example, did you know that organizations that really prioritize network planning can see much faster deployment times, up to 40% faster?
40%, that's pretty significant.
And get this, they also see 60% fewer issues after the migration is done. Talk about a smooth transition.
That's impressive. But let's be honest, there's always that one thing that can throw a wrench into any migration: application compatibility.
Oh yeah, those legacy applications lurking in the shadows, always waiting to cause problems.
So how does the book address that?
Well, it doesn't sugarcoat it. It says that almost a third, like 30% of migration challenges are caused by compatibility issues. And a lot of those, they could have been avoided with proper testing.
30%, ouch. All right, so testing is key. What else?
Well, the book suggests a two-pronged approach. You've got your automated testing, which is great for handling the bulk of the application.
Right, cast a wide net.
But then you also need manual testing. It's like a scalpel, precisely handling those really crucial apps that can't afford any hiccups.
Makes sense. A belt and suspenders approach for those mission-critical systems. But let's talk about something else that's critical: security.
Couldn't agree more. And the book really emphasizes the shift towards zero trust.
Ah, zero trust. So instead of just assuming everything inside your network is safe, you're basically saying, trust no one, verify everything.
Exactly. It's like always being on high alert, even within your own systems. But the good news is that Windows 11 has some built-in features to help with this whole zero trust approach.
Okay, like what?
Well, for starters, it has built-in support for multi-factor authentication. So it's not just relying on a single password anymore. You need that extra layer of verification.
Right. Makes sense. Passwords alone are, well, kind of outdated.
Totally. And then there's this really cool feature called conditional access.
Conditional access, what's that all about?
Basically, it lets you set rules based on context. So imagine you're trying to access a super sensitive file, but it's 3 a.m., and you're at a coffee shop on a public Wi-Fi network.
Yeah, that sounds a little sketchy.
Exactly. Windows 11 with conditional access can basically say, hold on a second, are you really sure about this? Adding that extra layer of protection.
So it's like it takes into account the situation, the environment, and makes decisions based on that.
Precisely. And that's where Azure Active Directory comes in. It lets you manage and enforce these policies across your entire IT infrastructure.
Okay, so cloud integration playing a big role here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not just the cloud, it's the hardware too.
Ah, right. Back to the physical world. What about the actual devices themselves?
Well, Windows 11 requires TPM 2.0, the hardware-based security feature. Imagine it like a tiny vault on your motherboard, making it way harder to steal sensitive data.
A tiny vault. I like that analogy. It's like Fort Knox, but for your computer.
Exactly. And then there's Secure Boot, which is like a bouncer for your operating system, making sure that only authorized software can run.
Okay, so they've definitely upped the security game with Windows 11. But even with all these security measures, breaches can still happen. So what happens when someone gets through those defenses?
Well, that's where network segmentation comes in. Think of it like, fire doors in a building. If one section catches fire, those doors contain the damage.
Ah, so you're limiting the blast radius, containing the damage to a smaller area.
Exactly. Windows 11 makes implementing this much easier, especially when combined with Azure Active Directory. But, security is not just about building a fortress. You also need to be able to detect and respond to threats.
So good defenses, A&D are rapid response team.
Exactly. Windows 11 comes with tools for monitoring activity, detecting those sneaky threats, and automating responses. It's like having a security team on high alert 24/7.
It sounds like they've really thought through security with this one. But let's not forget, technology is only as good as the people using it.
You are absolutely right. And that brings us to the next chapter of our deep dive, where we'll explore the human side of this migration journey, user adoption and change management. It's all about making this transition work for the people who'll be using Windows 11 every day. Welcome back, everyone. Last time, we dug into the strategic side of things and got a little technical with the whole migration process. But you know what? Technology is only as good as the people using it.
Absolutely. A shiny new operating system doesn't mean much if people hate using it.
Exactly. So let's shift gears and talk about the human side of migrating to Windows 11. How do we actually make this transition smooth for the folks who'll be using it every single day?
Well, chapter 3 of our AI-generated book is all about that. It's called Change Management and User Adoption.
Change management, user adoption. Sounds a bit corporate-y, but I guess it makes sense. You got to get people on board with the change.
Exactly. The book's point is that this migration shouldn't just happen to people. They need to be involved.
Okay, I like that. More human-centered, less like we're forcing it on them.
Yeah.
But let's be real, change can be scary. People get attached to their routines, their familiar interfaces.
True, very true. The book provides a roadmap, though, for navigating all of that.
Roadmap, huh? All right, lay it on me.
First step, identifying your stakeholders. It's not just about the IT department.
Oh, right. Everyone's a stakeholder in a way. From the top bosses making the decisions, down to the people who'll be clicking those new buttons.
Exactly. And you got to understand everyone's needs and concerns. It's not just telling them what's happening. You have to involve them, listen to them.
So two-way communication. Make them feel like they're part of the process. That makes a lot of sense. But what about, actually keeping everyone in the loop, especially in a big organization with so many different people?
Communication is absolutely critical. The book really stresses that.
But how do you actually do it well? It can't just be a bunch of emails that nobody reads, right?
Well, the book has this whole section on creating a strategic communication plan.
Ooh, fancy. Break that down for me.
Basically, figure out what needs to be said, who needs to hear it, and how to get the message across effectively.
So more targeted, right? Not just blasting everyone with the same generic updates.
Yep, exactly. And it even suggests using different communication methods. Formal emails, informal blog posts, maybe even some fun stuff on social media. Got to keep people engaged, right?
Yeah, mix it up a bit. Keep people's attention. Smart. But what about those people who just resist change no matter what? The ones who cling to their old ways. How do you deal with them?
The book acknowledges that resistance is going to happen. It's human nature.
Okay, so how do we win them over? Lots of free donuts, maybe.
It's not really about winning them over. It's about understanding their resistance and addressing it.
Okay, so empathy. Not a battle to be won, but a collaboration.
More like it. Sometimes people just need more info, reassurance, or maybe involve them in the planning, testing, make them feel like they have some ownership of the change.
Brilliant. Give them a seat at the table. I like it. But even if people are on board, they're still going to need some training to learn this new system, right?
Absolutely. Training is super important, and the book gets into detail about it.
So what kind of training are we talking about here? Not just a boring old PowerPoint presentation, I hope.
It actually recommends a multifaceted approach.
Multifaceted. Fancy word.
Well, basically, different strokes for different folks. Some people learn best from hands-on stuff, others might prefer online tutorials.
Right. Got to cater to everyone's learning style. Makes sense. But even with good training, there are always going to be hiccups, right? I mean, rolling out a new operating system is never 100% smooth sailing.
That's where the book brings up user experience optimization, making sure that people actually enjoy using Windows 11.
Okay, happy users, happy IT department, right?
Exactly. So how do we achieve that? Well, first off, you got to address the changes to the interface. Windows 11 looks and feels different, and people need time to adjust.
Yeah, I've seen some screenshots. It's definitely a change. Some people will love it, others not so much.
Right. So the book suggests, create those visual guides that compare the old interface to the new one, quick reference cards for common tasks, basically hand-holding through the transition.
Make it as painless as possible. But what about those cool new features in Windows 11? People need to know how to actually use them to be productive, right?
Absolutely. Got to get people excited about those new features.
Yeah.
The book talks about productivity feature training, teach people how to use all those cool new tools to get their work done faster and better.
Right, give me some examples. What are we talking about here?
Well, there's snap layouts, snap groups, which are great for multitasking,
Yeah.
enhanced touch and pen input, which is super handy for people using tablets or those convertible laptops.
Oh, yeah, those sound useful. But you can't just assume people will figure it out on their own, right?
Nope. Targeted training is key here. Show them how to use those features, how they can actually benefit from them.
Okay, we've got the interface, the new features, training on how to use them. What about accessibility? Got to make sure everyone can use this new system, right?
Totally. And Windows 11 has actually made some big strides in accessibility. Improved high contrast themes, better color filters, text scaling options.
So they're really thinking about making it usable for everyone, not just the average user.
Exactly. And the book stresses the importance of making sure people are actually aware of these features, know how to use them, maybe even targeted training sessions just for that.
Love it. Inclusive design is so important, but at the end of the day, no matter how cool the features are, if the system runs slow, people are going to be frustrated.
Performance is key. And thankfully, the book dedicates a whole section to that, performance optimization.
All right, let's talk speed. How do we make sure Windows 11 runs smoothly?
Well, first, got to make sure your hardware can actually handle it. Windows 11 has some higher system requirements than previous versions.
Right. Can't expect it to run well on an ancient computer.
Nope. But even with capable hardware, there's a lot you can do to optimize performance. Tweaking system settings, managing applications carefully, stuff like that.
So it's a combination of the right hardware and making sure the software is properly configured.
Exactly. It's all about making sure Windows 11 runs like a well-oiled machine so users can actually be productive. Nobody wants to stare at a loading icon all day.
All right, so we've covered performance. Now let's zoom out a bit. How does Windows 11 fit into the whole Microsoft ecosystem? What about those modern workplace trends we keep hearing about?
Great question. Chapter 4 of our trusty AI book is all about that. It's called Modern Workplace Integration.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, Windows 11 is deeply integrated with Microsoft 365. So it's about creating this seamless experience across all your devices, office, home, on the go, you name it.
The dream, right? Work from anywhere, anytime, and it just works.
Yep. And not just convenience, but also some cool productivity enhancements.
Okay, now we're talking. I love productivity hacks. What you got?
Well, Windows 11 really takes workflow automation to the next level. Power Automate, you remember that?
Vaguely. Remind me.
It can automate all those tedious, repetitive tasks, processing emails, filling out forms, copying data between apps, that kind of stuff.
Free me from the drudgery. But doesn't setting up all that automation require, some serious coding skills?
Not necessarily. Windows 11 has this thing called Power Automate Desktop with a much more user-friendly interface. Even non-technical folks can automate their work.
Wow, so it's not just for the tech wizards anymore. Democratizing automation. I love it. But what about those of us who, work from multiple devices all the time? Keeping everything in sync is a nightmare.
That's where cross-device synchronization comes in, and Windows 11 does it really well. All your settings, files, even application states synced seamlessly across your devices.
So like if I start a document on my laptop, run to a meeting, I can just pick up on my tablet without missing a beat.
Exactly. No more emailing files to yourself or worrying about version control nightmares. It just works.
Amazing. It's like magic, but, the good kind. What about those virtual desktop setups? VDI, was it?
Yep, VDI. And Windows 11 makes it easier than ever. So you can access your virtual desktop from anywhere, any device.
So even if I'm on my old laptop at a coffee shop, I can still have that smooth, secure Windows 11 experience.
Pretty awesome. What about mobile devices? Phones and tablets, they're practically extensions of ourselves these days.
Well, Windows 11 integrates seamlessly with mobile device management, MDM.
Right, MDM. Isn't that more about like controlling devices, making sure people aren't doing anything they shouldn't be doing?
It's about that too, but it's also about making it easier for people to work from their phones and tablets while
Right.
keeping everything secure.
Okay, so finding that balance between flexibility and security.
I see.
This deep dive is really showing how much more there is to this whole Windows 11 thing. It's not just a tech upgrade, it's really a whole new way of working.
Exactly. It's about using technology to make people's lives easier, more productive, more connected. Well said. All right, folks, we've covered a ton of ground here, but we need to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll dive into something that's becoming increasingly important: sustainability, and how to future-proof your Windows 11 environment. All right, welcome back, everyone. We've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive, from strategy to security to the user experience. But now it's time to talk about something that's becoming increasingly crucial: sustainability.
You got it. And thankfully, our AI-generated guide doesn't shy away from this topic. In fact, the last chapter is all about sustainability and future-proofing.
Sustainability, huh? I mean, we all know tech has an impact on the environment, but how do we actually make these Windows 11 migrations more, well, green?
It starts with understanding the carbon footprint. Data centers, all those devices, they consume a lot of energy.
Yeah, energy equals emissions.
Yeah.
Not great for the planet, but what can we actually do about it?
Well, the book argues that even small changes, when you implement them on a large scale, can make a big difference.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Small changes, big impact. Give me some examples.
One of the big ones is Windows 11's power management capabilities. It gives you really fine-grained control over how your devices use energy.
So like setting up sleep mode schedules, hibernation options, making sure those computers aren't sucking up energy when nobody's using them.
Exactly. And the best part is you can manage all this centrally. So the IT department can push out these energy-saving settings across the entire organization.
Nice. Efficient A&D, good for the planet. What else?
The book also talks about modern standby and instant-on capabilities. Basically, devices can wake up quickly from sleep mode so you don't have to wait forever for them to boot up, but they're still using very little power when they're in standby.
So it's a win-win for productivity A&D sustainability. I'm liking this. But what about the actual devices themselves? Making new devices takes a lot of energy, right? You're right. And that's where responsible device lifecycle management comes in. The book talks a lot about this. We've talked about lifecycle management before in terms of security, but how does it tie into sustainability?
It's about extending the life of devices, minimizing e-waste, maybe refurbishing older devices, recycling them responsibly.
So being more mindful of the entire lifespan of a device.
Precisely. And Windows 11 has features that actually support this, like enhanced diagnostic tools, so you can catch those little issues before they become big, expensive problems that require replacing the whole device.
Preventative maintenance. Smart. So you're saving money, A&D, reducing waste.
Exactly. But it's not just about saving the planet, it's also about preparing for the future.
Future-proofing. That's a good segue. So how do we make sure our shiny new Windows 11 environment is ready for whatever comes next?
Well, the book talks about building a flexible, scalable infrastructure, one that can adapt to change.
Okay, so we're talking about avoiding those rigid systems that crumble under pressure. But how do we actually do that?
It starts with scalability planning. Can your systems handle growth? Can they accommodate new technologies? Maybe you need to look into cloud solutions, containerization, things like that.
Right, make it adaptable, make it future-proof. What else?
The book also highlights the importance of a technology roadmap.
A roadmap. like for our tech journey.
Exactly. It's a plan that outlines how your tech investments will evolve over time. Where do you want to go with technology, and how are you going to get there?
Makes sense. Have a clear vision and a plan to get there. I like it. But even with all this planning, there's always going to be something new popping up, right?
Huh.
Some new tech trend we need to incorporate.
That's why the book talks about establishing an innovation integration framework.
Ooh, now there's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Innovation integration framework. What's that all about?
Think of it as a set of guidelines for evaluating new technologies, adopting them, integrating them smoothly. It's about being open to change and having a process for managing it effectively.
So we're not just reacting to every shiny new thing, we're doing it strategically. Love it. But with all this focus on the new, how do we make sure we're not neglecting the systems we already have?
That's where continuous improvement comes in. Constantly evaluating, tweaking, optimizing. It's an ongoing process.
So it's never really done, right? Always room for improvement.
Absolutely. Technology is always evolving, and we need to evolve with it.
Wow, what a journey this has been. We started with an AI-generated book about migrating to Windows 11, and we ended up talking about sustainability, the future of work, and the importance of continuous improvement.
It's been quite the deep dive for sure.
A huge thank you to our expert for navigating us through this fascinating material. And to all of you listening, I hope this has given you some food for thought as you navigate your own tech journeys. Remember, it's not just about the technology itself. It's about how we use it to create a better future for ourselves and for the planet. Until next time, stay curious.